Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. So today I have a treasure trove of vintage classic children's mysteries. We're going to talk about some of those classic children mystery series as well as some standalones that you may not know about. But before we get started, what is your favorite children's mystery? Let me know that in the comments so we can chat there. So first, let's look at some of those iconic popular mystery series for children. And we're going to go all the way back to the early 1900s, starting with the Bobbsey twins. The Bobbsey twins debuted in 1904. I did not realize they had been around that long, but these were written by Laura Lee Hope. This happens to be the first one in the Bobbsey twins series, and it's called The Bobbsey Twins of Lakeport. Let me know if you've read this one. That is one that I am trying to collect. I have several in a newer edition of the Bobbsey twins because it's still being published today. And this is one of the older ones, but there are some that I have on my shelf that go back even older than this copy. So there are several publications of that one. Then we have The Boxcar Children, written by Gertrude Chandler Warner, and that debuted in 1924. For me, this was my start with reading chapter books. The Boxcar Children, the very first Boxcar Children book, was the first chapter book I can remember reading and wanting to read more. I remember loving this book, and I read it over and over, and I also read some of the others in that series. Went on to some of these others that I'm going to mention in this stack of other mystery series, but the Boxcar Children will always hold a place in my heart as one of my first favorite books. Especially that first one. It was fantastic, and I know that when I taught school, a lot of my third graders loved that one as well. The next mystery series, I'm sure you know, that is the Hardy Boys, and this is written by Franklin W. Dixon, and it debuted in 1927. I happen to have the complete set of the Hardy Boys because the Hardy Boys was one of my favorites. I started with Nancy Drew, which we'll be talking about, of course, but the Hardy Boys was one that was so similar to Nancy Drew that I loved those as well. And just recently, maybe a year ago, I saw a complete set of the Hardy Boys. Now, not all of the Hardy Boys books, but the first complete set of the Hardy Boys, the original set. I found those at a consignment shop, and they were, I think, less than $1 a piece, and so I had to have them. And so I added those to my collection, and I do want to go back. I know that I haven't read all the Hardy Boys, but I do want to go back and read all that are in my collection. But this is one that is super popular, super famous. Let me know if you've read any of the Hardy Boys. And next we have probably the most popular of all, and that is the Nancy Drew Mystery Series, written by Carolyn King. And Nancy Drew debuted in 1930. 1930. Can you believe it? Now, this is my favorite edition of the Nancy Drew because these are the ones I remember. I remember this yellow spine in my library when I was in elementary school. And the joy of seeing those lined up on that shelf and to choose my next Nancy Drew was just a fun thing for me to do. And so I remember that very well. But I do have some of the older ones. These, of course, are printed. It's a matte cover, and it's printed on the book itself. But then I also have some because some of you have sent me some of the original Nancy Drews, like this one. Isn't that beautiful? And this one is a hardcover. It has a different end paper than mine, and it also has a dust jacket on it, so that the original book looks like this, and then the dust jacket looks like that. But they do look a lot different than the ones that I have been collecting, and so I'm gradually finding these out in the wild when I'm looking for different books at thrift stores and estate sales. So I love coming across these Nancy Drews because I know that a lot of us started off reading with Nancy, and so we all love Nancy around here, and I know a lot of you enjoy her too. Another classic mystery series that is not as popular as the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew, but was written by the Carolyn King group, and that is the Dana Girls. Do you know the Dana Girls? Now, I only have 3 of these in my collection, but if I find any, I will be adding these to my mystery series series collection because I love mystery so much and I enjoy reading these type books. But this one is called By the Light of the Study Lamp, and instead of just Nancy, there are two girls on the case in these solving the mystery. It's two sisters, the Dana Girl sisters, and they solve the mysteries in these. It's very similar to the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, but again, it's a duo like the Hardy Boys. We have two sisters, the Dana Girls. And then I wanted to mention the Trixie Belden mysteries. Now, I don't have a copy of a Trixie Belden, but those are great too. The Trixie Belden mysteries debuted in 1948. And so if you can find a copy of Trixie Belden, those are super popular as well. We also have the Happy Hollisters, written by Jerry West, and those debuted in 1953, as well as the Three Investigators by Robert Arthur, and those debuted in 1964. Now, those are the most popular vintage classic children's mystery series that I know, but I did want to mention a couple of others that some of you have told me about and I've collected as well, and that is Cherry Ames. She's a nurse and she solves mysteries in these. And then we have the Judy Bolton mysteries. This one is one that I have on my shelf by Margaret Sutton. It's the Yellow Phantom. I also have a few Beverly Gray. Have you heard of Beverly Gray, written by Claire Blank? And then I have been gifted a few Donna Parker. This is Donna Parker, Special Agent by Marcia Martin. Have you read any of the Donna Parker? Let me know if you've read any of these, and also let me know if there is a classic children's mystery series that I did not mention. I'd love to know that too. So leave a comment to let me know so I can discover that one as well. Now, what's wonderful about these mystery series are that they're great for young readers. Those readers who are just learning to read, because it is a mystery, so it makes it a little more exciting. They have clues along the way, but they have predictable characters, and the story is set up in a certain so-called formula. And for a lot of readers, when we become adults, we don't like the formulas as much, but for a young reader, that really is a great way for them to dip their toes into what we call chapter books. And so it's a great way for them to get started in reading in general, but also in the mystery genre, because we have predictable characters, predictable plots. We know that Nancy's going to solve the crime, before we even start reading it. And Nancy is a reliable character in each one of the stories, because we know that she doesn't change. She's the same throughout the series. And that helps a young reader as they're learning to read and comprehend and learn about how a story is set up, learn about how to look for clues as they solve the mystery. So they are very helpful for young readers, but I find that I love them still today. I find that Nancy Drew is still a favorite character for me, and I find them to be enjoyable even as an adult. So if you haven't read one of those old mystery series, I encourage you, go to your local library and find one, and maybe you'll be surprised at how much you enjoy it too. Now we're going to talk about just a couple of other mysteries that I want to mention. These are vintage classics, of course, vintage classic children's mysteries, but these happen to be standalones. And one that I really wanted to mention, well, two that I wanted to mention are Newbery Award winners. And so the reason that I consider them classics are because they are Newbery Award winners. And when you become a Newbery winner, you usually are going to be published for quite some time, and classrooms everywhere are going to purchase those books and have them in their classroom libraries for their students. And the first is The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. This was published in 1978, and this centers around the death of a wealthy man who creates in his will this strange game to determine his heir. And it is full of twists and turns. It is a quirky story, but I highly recommend it if you enjoy mysteries and lots of clues, because there are lots of twists and turns in this one. The next one is also a Newbery winner, and that is From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler by E.L. Konigsberg. This was published in 1968. It centers around two kids who are hiding out in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It is full of twists and turns, And it's different like the Weston game, a lot quirkier than a lot of the mysteries that I've mentioned earlier. It really stands out for me. I can see why it won the Newbery, and I highly recommend it too. Now I have a few of these paperbacks that are on my shelf. I have collected these over time by visiting thrift stores and estate sales. Anytime I see these type books, I pick them up because I do love the vintage children's mysteries, because this is what I read myself when I was a young reader, and this made me the reader that I am today. So I thought I'd mention a few of these if you enjoy those vintage children's mysteries, or if you have a young reader in your life, maybe you're a grandmother or a parent or a teacher, and you'd like to add these to your own library. The first few are by Phyllis Whitney. Now Phyllis Whitney was a romantic suspense writer for adults. She wrote a lot of gothic suspense type books, and I love those too, but I especially love these books she wrote for the younger audience, and these are all fun mysteries, and they are definitely those classic children's mysteries that I loved growing up. So the first is The Mystery of the Haunted Pool. If you ever see these, grab these up at library sales and thrift stores. This one is The Mystery of the Hidden Hand, The Mystery of the Crimson Ghost. I think one of my subscribers talked about this book in particular, and when I found it I was really excited. The Vanishing Scarecrow. That was a fun one too. Now, oh, and then this one is also by Phyllis Whitney, The Mystery of the Green Cat. And I just remember loving these when I was younger, and so I love those. But here's just a few others. The Riddle of the Lonely House. This is by Augusta Huell Seaman. I love that cover. And then Mystery of the Empty House. This is also originally titled Secret of the Old Postbox, and this was written by Dorothy Sterling. Do you remember these little paperbacks? So much fun. And one more, Mystery at Shadow Pond by Mary C. Jane. Look at that wonderful cover. So those are a few of my favorite vintage classic children's mysteries. Let me know if you've read any of these, and let me know if there's one that I didn't mention that's a favorite. I'd love to know that too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.